Hello and welcome everybody. This is the Direct Hiring Authority for our interns that are DHA or Direct Hiring Authority. If you are a public land court intern, PLC, this is not the webinar for you, but you will join us next week. And again, welcome. My name is Vivian and I am the program manager for the Latino Heritage Internship Program over at Environment for the Americas. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to my team, Stephen.
Hey everybody, I'm Stephen Poblete. I'm the program assistant at Environment for the Americas, mainly working with Latino Heritage Internship Program. And I'll pass it to Shelda.
Hi everybody, I'm Shelda Diaz Mendez. I'm coming to you from Puerto Rico, and I'm the manager of the Mosaics and Science Program at Environment for the Americas. And I'll pass it to Doug.
Ooh, all right. Hello everyone. I will I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Doug Hale. I am the program manager within NPS HR for a program that has a sort of different name when you are an intern at an NPS site. I will get into that shortly. There are a lot of names and there's some jargon involved. And that's part of why I'm looped in as an HR specialist. Is you might know a little bit about human resources, but keeping track and making sure that keep in line with all of the sort of required policies and details, and make sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and lowercase j's are dotted, because those sorts of things get forgotten about. I've been the program manager for these internships for Mosaics, Latino Heritage Internship Program, and the other 10 or so internship programs within the National Park Service. I've sort of coordinate individually with the different managers of those internship programs who do work at NPS. We extended this invitation out to some of the interns and potentially even site mentors for those other internship programs. So if you've been able to join today, welcome. And I guess before I launch into heavy content, is there anything else that I might that I should, tell folks, or shall we dive right into it?
Hi, Doug. This is Ernestine. Can you share how you started with the Park Service?
Sure. So I started at the Park Service in 2019. I had been working as a relatively new HR specialist at the Peace Corps, a small federal agency that you all have probably heard of, where people do 2-year Corps members do 2 years of service overseas. And I was attracted to National Park Service because I really like the mission, protecting natural and cultural, resources. I grew up in national parks. I really like everything about it. I've always loved working for a mission-driven organization, and so that was a big part of what drew me here. And I have had the chance to, even though I've been working in HR the whole time, have a number of different positions, see a lot of career growth, move into different roles. Working at NPS has been a really neat opportunity for me. And it's as part of the Department of the Interior and its largest bureau, with more than 20,000 employees and growing, there are so many different types of roles and positions at National Park Service. It's just a really exciting place to be. And the people here are really passionate and hardworking. So I guess that's part of why I'm excited to be here talking to you about how you can leverage this internship into Park Service employment in the long term. Was that sufficient, Ernestine?
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much.
Perfect. So this is scheduled for an hour and a half. I'm going to tell you now, I probably have 20 to 25 minutes of actual content to present, and then I'm open for Q&A and discussion. So You don't need to steel yourselves to listening to just my voice droning on in slides for an hour and a half. I have a grand total of 11 slides, some of which are just opening slides like this one. So don't worry. I will also say, because of the because of my technology settings right now, I'm gonna have a little bit of difficulty watching the chat. So if anyone from Environment for the Americas or Ernestine would be willing to help answer things in the chat, I will probably run through most of my content and then do a Q&A at the end. But if there's something that I have covered in one of the slides that is left unclear in which you need clarification, I encourage you to unmute and just ask a question. All right, that's all the housekeeping stuff. Anything else before we begin? Great, I'm seeing people introducing themselves. All right, so if we can go to the next slide, please. So really, you all have already been selected as interns. You have a sense of the work that you're going to be doing, what park or park service office you're going to be supporting. And so I just want to give you an overview of some of the stuff that's going to be the most important this time, to sort of give an overview of what this resource assistant internship direct hire authority program is about very briefly, and then talk to you about some of the expectations and responsibilities, both for you as the intern, but also what's expected of your site mentor and the folks who are going to be supporting you in your work. And then finally, how you're going to leverage this into a job and what you need to keep in mind, even during your work this summer, about um, how to leverage this internship into getting a position with us. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you the brief overview. This direct hire authority is a hiring flexibility, the Department of the Interior and all of its sub-bureaus, of which National Park Service is one, Bureau of Land Management, there are a number of them, can use. It's an initiative that creates federal employment pathways for students in higher education, and it provides us the opportunity to appoint someone into a position if they've successfully completed an 11 or more week resource assistant internship, put them in a permanent DOI employee position. Successful interns who become alumni of our program may be hired after graduation into permanent federal positions for which they're qualified without having to go through a competitive process or even to apply to a vacancy, usually through USA Jobs. You can be hired into any type of career service opportunity. This is getting into some jargon, but I just want to go through it, including career seasonal positions, jobs where you can work up to 50 weeks per year in a paid status, and then you would spend part of the year, a minimum of 2 weeks in unpaid status, or permanent full-time jobs where you work year-round. You are not going to be eligible for temporary positions or term positions through this direct hire authority, but you are still eligible to be considered for those positions by applying the traditional way through USA Jobs. One of the key focuses and the reason this direct hire authority exists is we're trying to get more diverse people into the federal government, and diverse oftentimes is coded language for race and ethnicity. It's inclusive of that, but it's also a way to try to get a diversity of age, of experience, of gender, and so on. So we're it we're we've been trying to leverage this as a way to get new perspectives, different backgrounds, um, new ideas, and yeah, I'll say it, in a lot of cases, younger people into the federal government. Um, all right, if we can move to the next slide, please. So um, basically, this is what you should expect during the course of your internship. These are intended to be intense and rigorous projects. They're going to be challenging experiences that should reveal interns' work qualities and motivation and allow them to focus their skills on the assigned projects. It should allow critical thinking and real world problem solving. Um, the work should challenge you to think, perform, and grow to new levels of competence, and is going to include deliverables, output that you need to produce that are meaningful to the Parker program, and that your site mentor or supervisor can evaluate for its value in adding to the National Park Service mission. Um, the rigorous component in this sense should be something that the site lead and other National Park Service staff can determine um, from your work based on the deliverables that you submit during and at the end of the project. The demanding schedule, the internship must be a minimum of 11 weeks of full-time work. The work should not exceed 40 hours a week. And if there are any federal holidays that fall during the course of your internship, like Juneteenth or July 4th, you're not obligated to make up hours for those work weeks. So I guess those 2 weeks would be 32-hour weeks. But it should be demanding. It's not a job shadowing opportunity, and there shouldn't be any built-in downtime to make the work less demanding. And these projects generally take place between May and September. There's some wiggle room as to the exact stop and start times. I think for the most part, I do the Latino Heritage Internship Program and Mosaic um, internships all happen at the same time, or there's some staggering?
They start at the same time.
So
It's
that'll
like-
keep it
like-
simple. But so I will say to interns, if you do find yourself with downtime, I would use that as an opportunity to, you know, learn more about the park, to sort of figure out how else you can add value, what you can do to contextualize your experience, um, and maybe even to do some of the things that I'm going to recommend about how to leverage this experience into a position with NPS. There should be a defined project structure and deliverables. You should have a really clear idea of your expectations, and you should have a good understanding of the path or paths to success and what you've been tasked with for the summer. And the complete work that and you should be able to complete work that your site leads, again, can assess for quality. The easiest way for this is for there to be defined deliverables for each intern. I know there are a couple of our programs where they have multiple interns at the same site working in coordination, but it's ideal that if that's the case, each intern has at least some degree of ownership over specific deliverables and work. And those defined deliverables should still leave some room for interpretation and value adding that you can, introduce based on your own skill sets, your own interests, your own discoveries. And this is designed to sort of reward your productivity, and inventiveness while also providing a clear goal. Um, Sort of underscoring all of this is the goal is for you to have a high degree of autonomy. Like you should have ownership and the ability to sort of manage your own work and um, sort of have some independence in what you're doing. I'm sorry, I'm searching for some of the words that that I'd like to use here. Um, so part of what will allow you to do this is by having regular check-ins with your site leads or mentors and making sure that you have access to them and potentially other stakeholders or employees um, at your park or program office. Um, so you can use them as sounding boards and for troubleshooting, but while you're still ultimately responsible for what you're working on. This is designed to allow you to develop and apply personal responsibility in your own project, to give you the chance to have ownership in what you do, and that, you know, can really lead to better outcomes. You know, we want you to be invested. We want you to, you know, be. We want to give you the opportunity for you to be as involved and passionate about some of your work as so many of our own employees have. You know, we want to, this is sort of a testing ground. We want to put you in a position where after, um, you know, this 11 or more week internship, you have really gotten the opportunity, you've gotten the resources, and you've had the chance to sort of show your stuff. And, you know, once you have proven that, then you're eligible for direct hire without having to compete with, you know, the general public for these positions. I do want to note that the site lead or mentor, there are different names on it based on the program. They must be present and available for intern guidance for the duration of the project. It doesn't necessarily need to be in person, and it certainly doesn't need to be all day, every day, but there must be some degree of availability for the entire project to provide context, to um, provide local park or program knowledge, and feedback is necessary, along with helping connect you as the intern to any less than obvious key stakeholders and resources, um, which are often keys to the project's success. Additionally, one of the things that we've asked the site mentors or the folks planning these internship opportunities are that you have an opportunity to engage directly both with internal to NPS and external stakeholders, rather than receiving and giving all of your communication directly to only your, you know, site mentor or lead and just the team in which you primarily work during the internship. So that was a lot, but I'm trying to lay out expectations. Um, I also, Vivian, I realized that the slides I sent you didn't actually include all of the notes that I'm going through here. So right after this call, I'll send you a new version that includes all of the notes. And so anyone who arrived late or missed this or zoned out or had to run to the restroom or what have you, you'll get all of this content after this call. Can I go to the next slide, please? So that was a description of what the project is intended to be. So these are your responsibilities. We want you to demonstrate leadership. Um, this is a chance for you to show your independence. I went to this training workshop a couple years ago where they laid out some actions demonstrating initiative. I am looking at this now and thinking that this is actually perfect material. So I'm going to put them into the notes for this presentation now, and I'm going to share them with you later. But things that demonstrate initiative are doing more than is what expected of you, going above and beyond and offering your help. Self-advocating, ask for what you want, share your strength, let folks in your program know how you can add value. You know, if you've been tasked with a certain thing, but you see potentially another angle that could help solve a problem, whether it has to do or not with your own project, speak up, be inquiring, be curious, ask questions, learn more, learn to understand the context surrounding what you're doing, and then prepare, do your homework and think ahead. You know, if you're going to be communicating to people, if you're going to be communicating a message to people or giving information material, for example, think of what are the like questions that they're likely to have. and then revisit that and then try to incorporate that. This is just some things. So demonstrate leadership in an initiative. Some of the other things that you're going to be asked to do are participate in webinars, training, preparing blog posts. One thing that we help you do in the course of the internship is we're going to help you prepare a federal resume. This will help you leverage. It won't be perfect for you to get hired because you're going to go on and finish your degree program and potentially have other things that you need to add to it, but it's going to be a template that you can build from. There's going to be a final report or deliverable for this. You know, you're going to hand in some sort of summary or whatever the product might be. There are lots of different types of projects. And then there's going to be a final presentation where you present your project results and recommendations to your park or program managers, and hopefully other stakeholders are involved in there to hear it too. You're going to talk about your experience, what you learned, but also what your recommendations and findings were. And then some of our programs, I believe Mosaic and Latino Heritage Internship Program do have a career workshop. Are y'all having the workshop at the main interior building this summer?
Yes.
Great. So, well, more to come on that. I don't need to discuss it. Next slide, please. So, there's a lot. I mentioned some funny names, or some different names for this program. So, some NPS leadership has defined the name of the actual interns in this overall program, Mosaic, LHIP, and all of the other ones as NPS Conservation Fellows. I'm going to be totally honest. Some of our projects involve conservation, some don't, but they wanted to give it a nice fellows name. And so while you're in the internship role, if you see something like NPS Conservation Fellows or NPSBF, that is going to be referring to sort of your work you're doing while you're an intern. But the direct hire authority for resource assistant interns is that the direct hire authority comes into play once you've completed your internship, and then once you've also completed the degree in which you're enrolled while you do the internship. Can we go to the next slide, please? There are going to be a number of things that you need in order to get hired. So at the end of the internship, you'll leave with 5 documents. The first 2 will be yours. You're going to have your federal resume, and then you may not bother to get an official transcript until you graduate, but the transcript, those are the things that you'll provide. The things that your program will provide, this will come from your program partners, Environment for the Americas, or whichever other NPS partner organization is the sort of managing your internship, and from your internal program, Mosaic, LHIP, or any of the other internship programs who may have attendees during this presentation. They're going to be providing a site lead completion memo, sort of a documentation of service from the person who is sort of the direct site supervisor or mentor. There's going to be a recommendation letter from the partner organization attesting to what you as the intern completed. And then there's going to be a completion certificate. It's it's electronic. We don't quite have the capacity to print it out and send it to you, but it's going to explain the details of how you can leverage this into a direct hire opportunity once you receive your official transcript with your completed degree and graduation date on it. Once you find a National Park Service hiring manager who wants to hire you, this is all the information that you'll need. You should plan to have electronic versions of items 3, 4, and 5 on this list in hand before you return to school this fall. I say in hand, I should probably rephrase that. Electronically stored somewhere safely where you can find them in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it is until you finish your degree, because you don't actually become eligible for direct hire until you've completed this internship and then subsequently completed your degree. So I guess that's what I've got to say on that. You're going to want to leave your internship with all 5 of these items. Next slide, please. This is the whole content of the slide. We're on slide 8 of 11, by the way. So on your graduation date, say you graduate May 15th, 2024, you will be eligible to be hired into a position for 2 years. May 15th, 2020, if you're graduating May 15th, 2024, that door closes, no ands, if, buts about it, on May 15th, 2026. Next slide, please. I gave you a little preview of this. National Park Service Conservation Fellows. So that's our name for the sort of overall program in which we can use this direct hire authority. Include the internship in which you are currently serving or about to start. And like again, I just want to reiterate, the whole point of this is to hire more former interns into federal service and increase diversity in our workforce. And so I just want to reiterate, NPS Conservation Fellows, recognize this as related. I know for simplicity's sake, a lot of folks refer to this as resource interns, resource assistant interns, or DHA. It's all the same thing, but just be aware, especially when I start to talk about how you can leverage it and how you're going to communicate with potential employers, supervisors at NPS, that they may have heard different names for this. So I just want to make sure that you're aware going in. Next slide, please. So I'm nearly done. So what you need to do during the course of your internship is network. While you complete your internship, you're going to want to develop connections with folks in NPS. You're going to want to sort of develop good relationships, meet the folks at the park or in your programs. I behave professionally and amicably, and think about this as an opportunity where you're developing contacts who are going to be able to help find you positions later. So while you complete your work, just keep that in the back of your mind. So complete your internship, prove yourself as a great future NPS employee with high quality, hard work. Develop relationships and contacts with employees and other stakeholders at your park or office. After that, you're going to finish your degree. Study. You can't be direct hired if you don't graduate from your degree program. While you do that, keep in contact with your park or office. Try to leverage people to identify other job opportunities that you're interested in or for which you're a good fit. Just because you do an internship in a certain area doesn't mean that you would need to get employed in that same type of work. Say you're in school and you think, I don't know, you are really interested in biology. I'm just gonna say something. And so you're involved in something that is maybe something where you're doing a lot of botany work. as you go return to school, you might realize, I like biology, but there's sort of an environmental science focus that I'm really more interested in. And you start sort of heading in that direction. You could, or even you could say, forget this, I need to make money, I need to support myself, and go into business. There are all sorts of different positions. So just because you complete an internship doing a certain type of work doesn't mean that you could be eligible to be hired into any kind of position that NPS has. And we have so many different types of opportunities and roles for people here. And then finally, or I was saying, so while you finish your degree, keep in contact with your Parker office. You're going to want to try to keep in contact with folks there. They may not know, of positions, but they may know people, other parks or other offices who are aware, send out feelers. I usually try to suggest, I'll have some more recommendations sort of at the end of the summer. So I don't want to dive too much into this, but keep this in mind. You're going to want to try to develop relationships and contacts that you can maintain over time. And then finally, later, when to get hired by National Park Service, um, you're going to try to, even before you graduate, start contacting some of these points of contact that you've made and sort of maintained periodically while you finish your degree program to try to find and speak with and potentially even do sort of informational or real interviews with some different hiring managers. It's not going to be something that you apply through USA Jobs for, and you'll need to find options through your network. So one of the other resources that is mentioned right on this slide is that there is also a former intern database. So our programs, once you do graduate and become eligible, you'll be put into our database so that hiring managers can find you unsolicited. But it would be really, it's going to be to your benefit to think about developing relationships, professional relationships with the folks that you interact with in the course of your internship this summer, so that you can sort of be the master of your own destiny. You can take that initiative to really make that initial point of contact, um, show that you're proactive, and that will be that much more compelling. Show your initiative. That will be that much more compelling for folks who eventually decide that they might want to hire you. Final slide, please. That's it. I realized I probably went on for about 5 minutes to 10 minutes longer than expected. I just wanted to stress upon you the importance of you making these connections during the course of your internship, though. With that being said, here's my contact information if you'd like to get in touch with me. But we have plenty of time left, and so I am going to try to pull up the chat because I've seen it's been pretty active this whole time, and see if there's anything I can address initially. I see several questions from internal NPS folks.
I was gonna say, we do have one question. It was way in the beginning, if you can clarify that. From, oh my gosh, I lost it. But it was clarifying an acronym.
Oh, I'm sorry if I didn't define all of my acronyms.
Oh, CTAP, ICTAP.
That is someone who is a hiring manager at NPS asking about this. Lindsay, I see this. Yes. I don't want to confuse all of our interns. This is an internal process that folks at NPS will have to manage. And I'll give a little bit more detail about that in the end of the summer webinar about some of the more persnickety next steps and mechanics of getting hired using this direct hire authority. But yes, we do need to clear the interagency career transition assistance program before you can hire someone into a permanent role using this direct hire authority. All right, the database. The database is on the. Ernestine, do you want to jump in before I just go through and answer some more of these chat questions?
No, I was just hoping if you could share like typical positions and grade levels, if you can talk a little bit more about that. But
Okay, that's one of the questions in here. Yeah, I'll talk about that in just a moment. I just am gonna try to run through really quickly. The database, yes, it's on an NPS SharePoint site, so only NPS employees can see it. And yep, thank you, Shelda. I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly. I'm sorry if I didn't.
It is.
Yep.
Thank you.
The different internship program managers will liaise with the interested hiring managers to connect interns.
And may I add to that, Doug, that we typically work with your host partner, I mean the partner organization that you're doing your internship through, to share these opportunities. And in addition to staying in touch with your NPS site mentor, supervisor, and other connections you're making while you're in your internship with the National Park Service, please do stay in touch with your host, your partner organization. They often will be looking for folks to assist with workshops, and it's just a great way just to continue your connection and learn about future employment opportunities.
Yes, exactly. And I see, yeah, Ernestine, you mentioned it, so did a couple other people, Maria Delgado Gomez. Vivian, yeah, if you could, I don't know if you're planning to send out meeting notes. Like I said, I'll send you a copy of my slides that have a PDF of my slides along with all the notes, some of which I'm updating as they give this presentation. And if you could share some of those, but I'll give a brief kind of answer about some of the different types of positions and some of the grade levels. So I regularly receive, as the program manager, I have to review packages for requesting direct hire. And so I regularly get and approve and work to hire people, generally between GS 5, which you're eligible for with an undergraduate degree, up through GS 12, which you need at least a year of work experience to qualify for. You can't even qualify for that with education alone. And they're in all sorts of job series. We get a lot of park ranger protection. We have a couple of our internship organizations are through sort of universities that have law enforcement programs. We've got a lot of different park rangers in all sorts. So for interpretation, doing interpretive programs, explaining history or natural resources or cultural stuff going on. So I'd say park rangers are one of our biggest. That being said, we have a heavy tie to a lot of other types of administrative roles. So we hire budget analysts, financial analysts. We've hired people into HR positions. We've hired people into IT specialist positions. We have had a number of scientific positions. We occasionally will hire folks as oh my gosh, I'm forgetting some of the job titles. Vivian, can you think of some off the bat or off
I'm
the top of
thinking
your head?
like biotechs or
Biotech. Yep.
Curator,
what was that, Vivian?
a museum curator at a GS 5. Yeah.
Yep, and we've had visual information specialists who do stuff like graphic design, helping design materials that are, printed or put onto signage and stuff in our parks. All sorts of things. But so Ben, it's a broad range, but generally GS 5 through 12 are what I most typically see.
And may I also add here, and if you're interested in seeing the other, different types of positions, typically some partners do annual reports. All of the partners do, but some of them do feature folks that have been previously hired and, and what types of positions they've gone into, not only with the National Park Service, with other federal agencies and other types of public land management organizations. So you could learn a little bit more about some, historically what some folks that's been in these types of internships, what type of work they're doing today.
Thank you. Shelda, do you have a question?
Yes. Thank you. Because I've been with the Mosaics in Science program for a couple of years now, I thought it was interns would wait until hiring managers asked for their resume. That's how I typically work with this. You mentioned that if they knew of a hiring manager, they can contact them. How can they contact them? How can they actively look for, do they go into the position and then how would they go about that?
I am going to open up the presentation that I give in the fall to get the answer to that question that I can give a more informed answer to it. But generally, what I would say is you're going to do it through a professional network. So say you have a site supervisor or mentor who was, who you had a good rapport with and you developed a relationship with. Sorry, I'm pulling up some notes. You're going to want to try to sort of maintain periodic contact, and it doesn't have to be that frequent. People remember you, but I would say somewhere between maybe once every 4 to 6 months. Send out hey, how's it going? I hope things are going well for you. I'm in school, I refine, I know I was a generally I'm going to go with my old example, a biology major, but I've really gotten into more focus in environmental science. I still love the idea of working with National Park Service after I graduate. I just want to make sure to keep in contact with you so that you know how interested I am, and in sort of if you know of anyone else, I would say maybe start doing this closer to your graduation date, but then start going into, I'm really started interest maybe 6 months before you graduate. I'm really interested in looking into positions like, this or this type of thing. You can do some research. We can connect you with, information about different types of job series and stuff like that. But
So
but
Doug,
no,
oh,
let me finish. I'm getting distracted by the meeting chat. I saw what MIS and I thought mosaics and science. But start saying like, hey, I'm really interested. I know, not every park is always hiring, but if you know of any, of your colleagues at other parks or other offices who may be hiring in the next, you know, 6 to 9 months, would you mind connecting me with them? This is the part of networking that, I remember when I was in school, I was always dreading. It's not comfortable. It's not easy, but it's important and it works. But waiting around for someone to pick you, we do have that database, but you're more likely to be successful by like Ernestine, that maintaining good contact with your partner organization so that they can, you know, they can find opportunities and help connect you with that. And then also making your own efforts to leverage those personal relationships you've developed during the course of your internship and after into, even if it's something like just setting up informational interviews way before you're um, ready to graduate even, that is over the phone. An informational interview, a 15 or 20-minute conversation over the phone can spark so many ideas, and you're likely talking to someone to mention something that's going to have them say, oh, I hadn't even thought, but this opportunity might be great for you. Or, oh, I know so and so, I was just in touch with them 2 weeks ago about this thing, we should connect, I should connect them with you. it it's it's work, but it's work that works.
And Doug, may I also add, I know I see someone with a hand up, but I just want to add here that it's really helpful when you finish or you're close to finishing your degree to send an email sharing your interests. Typically, we get those at the national level and the regional level, and we can help put the information out there to potential hiring managers that may be looking for folks, just to let them know. And if you could share in that email what your interests are, that sort of information is helpful for potential hiring managers. I would also add, if
And
you
your updated resume, your
updated
updated
resume,
federal resume in that too.
federal, yes, the federal resume. So please walk away with that and utilize us while you're here to make sure your resume is good, But I would also, I wanted to add that for the programs that require blogs, and I know that Doug mentioned that earlier, that is excellent, because I know that some hiring managers that may not have access to your resume will go on and read your blog post to get an idea of your experience during your internship, your interest, and your writing, your writing skills. So that's been really helpful in helping people to land jobs. So I just wanted to add that.
Amin?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I understand that the job market can be very situational and like your network is huge and all of these things, but I was wondering if you had information on how your level of education plays into having a DHA. So for example, I'm still pursuing my bachelor's, so my DHA would be valid for my time, like after my bachelor's, or if I decide to do a master's or not, kind of like before I'm a master's student or at the PhD level. And I know that for science positions that you mentioned with the National Park Service, especially in other government agencies, it's really important to have that higher level of education to even be really considered for that position. But I'm wondering if DHA kind of helps put my foot in that door after college, if I were to try and pursue that, those types of job positions, or if I'd be able to land something like that, but seasonal, basically how your level of education plays into your chances with different job markets within the National Park Service.
Okay. Yeah, I can speak to that. I do want to say that it's 2 years from your DHA eligibility, lasts 2 years from your graduation date of the degree program in which you were enrolled during when you completed the internship. So say you decided to go do right after a 2-year master's program that took you through, like, I don't know when you're graduating, but let's just go with my when are you graduating?
I'm
Or when are
actually
you
graduating.
planning to graduate?
I'm planning to graduate off cycle in December of 2024.
Gotcha. So then say you chose to start a master's program that was 2 years that took you through full calendar years 25 and 26. That would be the end of your DHA eligibility. that's sort of the unfortunate reality. What I will say is getting your foot in the door, say at let's say a tech position as opposed, at a GS 5, 6, or 7 grade, um, would make it much easier for you to move into later positions. It also doesn't preclude you from career seasonal opportunities, which I mentioned before, which are permanent positions, but that you only work during certain parts of the year. Those are It's in contrast to just regular seasonal opportunities, which are temp positions where they make new hires each year. I will also say that um, the your education level, your type of degree can play into what type of GS grade you are eligible for. And so let me walk through that. So the a bachelor's degree can qualify you for GS 5 level positions. Something called superior academic achievement, which is if you get have a overall 3.0 GPA in a bachelor's program, or if you have a 3.5 in your major, or if you're a member of an academic honor society. Any of those can be considered superior academic achievement. And so with a bachelor's degree in superior academic achievement, you can qualify for a GS7 graded position based on education alone. 1 year of master's degree work toward a master's degree qualifies you for a GS7. A completed master's degree or 2 years of work toward a completed master's degree qualifies you for a GS9. And either a PhD or 3 years of work toward a PhD qualifies you based on education alone, no related work experience, for a GS11. I will say that there are some schools where, and this might be useful for you, I mean, there are some schools where it's all considered one program. You lump in a 5th year and you graduate with a bachelor's degree and a master's. And so that is an opportunity that could be leveraged. But so I don't have a clear answer for you. And if you want to enter NPS sort of already at the level that that requires having a master's degree or a PhD, it's likely that you won't be able to leverage this unless you get your foot in the door earlier in some kind of way. I am sorry, I cannot track I cannot track the full chat while I'm talking, but
Doug, I think there's a question in regards to if the National Park Service can assist in higher education. I'm paraphrasing here. And I'm wondering if the presidential fellow would be one of those. I don't know if you could share any type of programs that we may have.
Presidential management fellows, it's sort of a different opportunity. We have what are called pathways programs, which are a different route to NPS employment. They are entirely separate from this, but presidential management fellows is something that you apply to, generally folks who are in master's programs, and you apply separately and you get selected as finalists, and then you can be hired from, across the government. They're usually 2 1-year terms at different federal agencies, um, after which, you get a taste of some different workplaces, some different um, types of jobs in the federal government, after which you can be converted into a permanent position. Um, if you're asking about assistance with higher education, I think what might be more helpful than, well, there are pathways to internships, which you need to apply for through USA Jobs, which do pay, an hourly rate. think they're generally in the $15 to $20 an hour, so comparable. And generally pathways interns work 10 to 20 hours during the semester and then often switch to full-time during the summer. That being said, there I don't see that being utilized that often at the park level. The main office that I see leveraging a lot of pathways interns is the Accounting Operations Center in the Washington, D.C. area, which is really valuable work, but it is not necessarily it's I reviewed all of the internship proposals for the internships that you were selected for, and I'm not it's not ringing a bell that any of them were really that related, strongly related to financial accounting or even anything related to it whatsoever. What I can say is that as a federal employer, when someone is hired with us, there is something called the student or public student loan forgiveness program where if your hiring manager is amenable to it, we can pay up to $10,000 toward per year for a total of up to $60,000 toward federal student loans, which is really helpful. Um, it depends on your park or program's budget. So that's a big if, but that is an opportunity, and they have to be federal loans. That can't be paid toward private loans. All right. I'm looking back through the chat.
And Doug,
Does
I did
MPS
add,
does MPS offer opportunity?
sorry about that.
What was that?
I did add the link to the Pathways program in the chat.
Thank you, Ernestine. All right, I see a question from, I'm trying to scroll up. The hiring process for a federal job usually takes up to a year. How does that affect the 2-year limit after graduate? DHA does not take a year. I would say generally 3 to 4 months. And so that's why you want to do the outreach before you graduate. And we do get a number of hiring packages where we approve people for direct hire contingent upon them planning at the expected graduation date. And so I've already gotten, I think in the last 2 weeks, 3 approved hiring packages for people contingent upon them supplying an official transcript showing their May 2023 graduation date before they, you know, enter on duty. I'm trying to review some more of these questions in the chat. I see a question about public service loan forgiveness. Yes, that is student loan repayment is something that the individual agencies can offer. The public service loan forgiveness is if you work in public service, and that's not just federal service, that also can include NGOs and certain faith-based organizations for 10 years. So, and you can show that you've been making at least the minimum amount qualified payments toward your student loans for those 10 years, and you can apply and have the rest of them forgiven. Yep. So if you, oh, Jason Gibson, I see you chiming in there. Yep. So we have students who are in graduate program or in all sorts of different degree programs from associates up through PhD programs. And so if you are interested in something that necessitates a higher level degree and that's not something that you're in now and you ultimately decide to, wait until after you have a higher level degree to pursue NPS employment, that's your prerogative. You know, we have still gotten the benefit of your good hard work over the summer. We do hope to be able to hire you, but yep, it does not preclude you from, you know, perhaps participating in a different internship in the future that would get you that DHA eligibility. You can only be hired via this direct hire authority once, but just because you've completed an internship does not mean that you haven't been hired via the direct hire authority. It gives you the eligibility for that hire. Um, Chat is very active and my mouse is scrolling around everywhere. Um, um,
I think,
Tony Ramos, I'm afraid I don't understand your question. You said you're interning at a DHA site.
yes, so all,
Oh, Vivian already responded to that.
yes, so if you all are here, you all are DHA interns, which means you made that final hire and selection. Once you completely and successfully complete the program, we will then work to issue your DHA paperwork to have for your records. So you won't need to sign up for anything.
Maria, no matter how many master's degrees you have, that will not qualify you for GS11. You need a PhD to qualify for GS11 based on education alone.
Thanks for clarifying.
I know it'd be nice, you know, if there was some reward for that, but I see one last thing. Yes, Alan, thank you for chiming in. This is actually really nice as the conversation is closing down. This presentation is about the Resource Assistant Internship Direct Hire Authority. Next Thursday, May 25th, is the PLC presentation where they're going to talk about the details of, you know, completing that, the PLC internships and how to get hired in PS using that. So everyone, I promised you Alan was not a plant, but it almost seemed like it was, like he was.
So Doug, you will be joining us in August to talk about next steps after the internship is done. Yes?
That is the plan.
Yay.
Yeah, if I'm not sure of the mechanics, Vivian, of this meeting, but are you going to receive a roster of everyone who logged in so that you can email out sort of post meeting notes as well as the invitation to the PLC meeting? If not, I can share out if you send me the PLC meeting invitation, I can share it out to everyone that I shared this meeting information to.
Yes, that'd be great. Sorry, I just realized I'm muted. Yes, I know some in here are not part of the Latino Heritage Internship Program or Mosaics in Science. So I am going to drop our program email. Definitely feel free to reach out if you would like these materials as well from after the webinar.
And if we
Right,
can, we will plan to share with all DHA or
Yes.
conservation fellow interns across the service, regardless if they're here or not. So please loop me in, Doug, when you're in your email for those additional resources.
Actually, then Ernestine, I can just give you the contact list that I sent this meeting info out to, and that might be the simplest way.
Yes, that would be excellent. Thank you.
Isabella, I see a hand.
Yeah, so you mentioned that there was an academic achievement GS level associated with the bachelor's degree.
Superior academic achievement. Yep.
Yes, is there one associated with a master's degree?
No. So the master's can only qualify you up to GS9. PhD only qualifies you up to GS 11. It's only the bachelor's degree that with superior academic achievement can qualify you for a higher grade, the GS 7. But generally a bachelor's degree is considered as GS 5 qualifying.
Thank you.
Maria, you said you can only use DHA once. So a direct hire authority, this is a specific, this is not the direct hire authority. There are many, many different types of direct hire authorities in the federal government. This specifically is the Resource Assistant Internship Direct Hire Authority. You can only be appointed into a permanent federal position once using the Resource Assistant Internship Direct Hire Authority. PLC is something else entirely, and getting hired via the Resource Assistant Internship Direct Hire Authority would not preclude you from any other hiring path, including PLC. Would
Thank
not
you.
prevent you from being hired via any other hire.
Thank you. So later on, someone could do a PLC and get hired through that. Awesome.
Yes. Any other questions?
I have one that might open up a can of worms.
What I'm here for.
But I just think it might be good to address here that if all of the conservation fellows successfully complete their interns, does that qualify them for PLC certificates?
No,
Thank you.
not necessarily. The 11 weeks minimum of full-time work comes out to 440 hours. While serving NPS does count as serving an organization that supports public land, the PLC requirement, I can never remember. It's either somewhere between 620 and 660 hours.
It's 640 hours.
It's right in the middle of those two. I just need to take the average. So say you did an internship through the Resource Assistant Internship DHA sort of program, the National Park Service Conservation Fellows, that went weeks long, and you did end up doing 640 hours. So say you did 16 weeks instead of 16 weeks instead of 11 weeks, you could get PLC eligibility. That being said, your the partner organization or the internship supervisor and the internship program, if they're not set up and familiar with PLC requirements, you might not end up with the paperwork or the documentation you need in order to get that PLC eligibility. But yes, you can, and I have seen instances in which someone walks away from a PLC internship from an internship with both eligibilities. That being said, this isn't a hard rule, but my understanding is that a lot of the time, someone who gets PLC eligibility is not doing all of the work in one lump full-time period. It tends to be either part-time work or work done at different points in the year. There is a lot more flexibility, to be honest, with PLC than with the Resource Assistant Internship Direct Hire Authority.
Yes, and I will add typical internships for PLC is 11 weeks or so. It may be 400 hours in the season. So sometimes, people will come back the next year, and maybe not necessarily with the Park Service. Maybe next year they go with the Fish and Wildlife Service or Forest Service. So you can hop around like that.
Yep. Isabella, I hope that answers your question. PLC hours can be accumulated in a number of different things. You just need to make sure that your hours and the specifics of those opportunities are documented so that you can get your PLC eligibility once you've completed the 640 hours. If more questions about PLC, please come next week, because
we have a different webinar, a different hiring authority. Sorry to bring that up, and didn't want to confuse the two because they're two separate authorities, but that's a common question we get. And I just wanted to make sure it got addressed on this particular call.
Yep, and someone much more knowledgeable and experienced than me will be here to talk about PLC. Not that I gave you bad information. You just have one of my colleagues, another HR specialist, Crystal, who has been with NPS for a long time and really knows the ins and outs. And she will be here to answer all of those questions. So if you're at all curious, recommend you join next Thursday. Well, Vivian and everyone, I'm a guest speaker, but this is your show, so let me know if and when you'd like to adjourn. Are there any other questions before I wrap up?
Not a question, but as the program manager, I do want to remind the interns the importance of those work deliverables. Because at the end of the internship, it's required that you turn in those deliverables so we can have them turn it into the NPS program manager, which is on our case is Kirsten Jarvis. She's here with us today also. And once you do that, of course, we will prepare the partner recommendation letter. Your supervisor will prepare your memo, and Kirsten Jarvis and team will prepare the certificate. So those are the 3 documents that Doug mentioned that you should have with you prepared. Just this past week on Monday, we got a request for a DHA former intern, Amani. She was where you are, Tony, in Padre Island, and she just sent everything on the spot. This is my federal resume updated. This is my transcript, and these are my documents. And that was on point. And she even emailed me and said, I even have my work deliverables in case I get interviewed and they ask for any evidence of what I did. So when you do that in that process and you're so organized, that's the greatest sign. So right now you're starting. So those work deliverables, the blogs, like Doug mentioned, the hiring managers will find you if you write a really good blog, and that's what they're looking for, a science communication, even though if that wasn't your position. So
That's really great advice. Yep. As important as networking is making it easy and enticing for these hiring managers to want to pick you up.
Thank you so much, Shelda. That was really helpful and insightful. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, Doug. Again, this was a really great session. I love seeing the chat so engaged. You all had a lot of questions, and I know I came out with a lot from this. So if there aren't any more questions, we'll definitely conclude for today. If you all are interested in learning more about the Public Land Corps Hiring Authority, we will have our webinar at the same time, same place next Thursday. But other than that, we will follow up with you all with the recording and the materials from this webinar.
Can I say congratulations out loud to everyone for your selection into the program? We're really excited, and we know you're going to have an excellent summer. So yay. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Mosaics and LHIP folks in DC in August. So thank you all again in advance for your service to the National Park Service. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ernestine. And Shelda, can you stop the recording, please?
yes.